this is Don.
And hi, this is Cindy, and welcome to Pearls of Liberty for March 23rd, 2013. We have some interesting topics to look at today. National Guard sent out furlough notices in error. I have to wonder about the truth of this, and this has to do with the threatened sequester, that funding is being cut in certain quarters, and these people were notified that they were sent on furlough because they couldn't be paid.
You mean you don't believe the story is true? I think the story is probably true. I think
Well,
the truth is that
this is, I have to wonder the truth about, I have to wonder about the truth of this. I think the question is whether it was done in error or whether it was done as a threat or for some other reason.
right. I want to make that clear just in case people misunderstand. What we're saying is that maybe these notices were sent out on purpose so they could say, "Oops, we didn't mean to do that," and they've kicked something into motion which they could claim plausible deniability and say, "We didn't mean to do that." And I'm not sure which way this would go, whether this would be National Guard that would be siding with the people and starting an uprising, or whether they would be incensed and not know that their pay had not actually been cut, and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I think it's all about creating confusion. That seems to be one of the things that the powers that be are always good at, and they don't necessarily care what most people are thinking. But if a lot of people are confused and they're in control of the confusion, for them that's always a good thing.
Well, interestingly enough, the states where this happened seem to me to be some of the states, not all these in the list, but some of these are the ones that have really been pushing for liberty. Of course, Arizona's not here, and they're a state that has been really pressing for liberty, but some of these are Tennessee in particular, Utah. Some of these states are states that have been demanding 10th Amendment rights and have been resisting Second Amendment restrictions, things of that nature.
Yep. So maybe that's why I'm saying maybe they're trying to stir something up in these states by sending out these notices that are actually not true. So it could be them. See, the elites want to have the people get physical. They want to have a confrontation. And I think they're kind of mystified that people seem to be so either controlled or asleep. It's probably a combination of the two.
Well, maybe just self-controlled and disciplined. This having to do with what everybody was using the word sequester a couple of weeks ago, that there are not funds, budget cuts that took effect March 1st. What are your thoughts on the whole sequester idea? Do you believe that there really aren't not enough funds to run some of these things, or what's going on?
No way. These guys, to put it simply, they can create money out of nothing, and they're not really concerned about the economy and the whole. Basically, the people that bought the austerity message and say, yes, we don't have enough money, we've got to balance the budget, etc., etc. They want you to take that stand so that you get blamed for the crisis that follows, and they purposely created this problem. And the answer is to control the people that are in charge of it, not cut off money to the little guy, which is what always happens, which is what they're doing. The sequestration money cuts are going, teachers are getting cut, and the politicians are still having lavish junkets, as they used to be called, expenditures in foreign lands, at Biden in Paris, etc. So that's the way that they play the game, and this is playing right into their hands, saying, yeah, we've got to sequester this money so that we can get government back on track, when they have no intention of getting government back on track other than totalitarian power grab.
This article is older but it's really to lend context to the next article. Financial implosion, global derivatives market at $1,200 trillion, 20 times more than the world economy. And now, according to Tom Hennigan, there is a derivative meltdown well underway. According to this article, the German Nazi skull and bones Deutsche Bank faces a $3 trillion margin call the day Cyprus banks actually open.
I tend to believe that this is all by design. It's not like, oops, we didn't know this would happen. The margin calls are by design. This is all like clockwork being set up to take down the things they want to take down. And the thing that people never realize, it's always hard for us to get it through our thick skulls that these people are so devious. They target themselves, and by themselves I don't mean their own elite bank accounts. I mean the countries with which they're associated. So this whole collapse is intended to further their cause. So if Europe collapses, they can pose as the saviors, and they can say, here, this is what we do, and then they have the ability to turn on the printing presses in such a way that there is confidence restored. So they know they have all the control levers in place that they can create the problem and then offer the solution. And one of the things that's also in a part of the mix here is dealing with Russia. And one of the things that happened with Cyprus is that the Russians used that to launder their money, the Russian oligarchs and the Russian drug mafia. So it's they're trying, the elites that are the Anglo-European elites are trying to see if the Russian elites will come in and rescue. And what Russia's doing is they're sitting back and saying, oh, okay, well, we'll let it all fall. Meanwhile, of course, the top oligarchs were warned and got their money out. The Russian guys got their money out of Cyprus. So now the Russians are not doing the rescue of their Swiss bank, so to speak. They are banking on Europe collapsing and them benefiting from that collapse. That's how I think the game is being played. That's the way it looks like it is at the moment anyway. And then this next article is about some bases that Russians trying to get a hold of. So they're definitely on the advance. Cindy can explain more about this base thing.
Well, just that, and I had heard earlier in the week that there were Russian naval ships that were headed here. So evidently, according to some sources, the Russians want to move in on Cyprus and increase their control there. So I've not heard any rumblings that there would be a battle, but I have heard that they are sending ships there, whether they're protecting their funds or making some kind of another move. There's so many things that are happening in the world at this time. There's a sense that they're all linked together, but it's really difficult to put the puzzle together, I think.
Yeah, these guys have been, this clan of people, have the Cabal, whatever you want to call them, have been manipulating history for centuries, and they are experts at making things look random and benign and unconnected when in fact they are very connected. And they've been playing three-dimensional chess for centuries, and the three dimensions are like, yeah, the banking is one dimension, but it always boils down to the physical too. They're going to have it requires physical control. In the final analysis, it requires force. So for the different chess players to play, they've got to use their finances and the financial confusion, etc., as occasion to grab military bases and things that help them actually gain control on the ground.
This is MP's approved bank restructuring and solidarity fund as it happened. And this is a pretty extensive article that has more information. Russia, no new help for Cyprus. So just there is so much information coming in on all this that it's a little difficult, as we just said, to tell exactly what's happening. I did happen to see an article this morning that the BRICS nations are talking about structuring an organization that will replace the IMF. So the IMF will be cut off. Where this will all go is really not easy to determine.
Yeah, that's where I always thought the BRICS thing was going, as a competition to the IMF. They need to take that into high gear, I believe. I never thought it was going to cooperate within the IMF or being a wing of the IMF. If they're truly challenging the status quo, they need to go separate, and it sounds like that's what's starting to happen.
There was an excellent Nigel Farage YouTube video that was circulating this week. I understand it was from some time ago, but we'll have a link to that in our notes, and that is helpful in understanding some of these issues as well. How to Defeat CISPA Once and for All. This is a 50-minute video. Contains some very good information. There's a speech by Aaron Swartz, and this gives context to what is going on at this time with internet freedom and efforts to block internet freedom.
Yeah, it's the important thing about this is it gives us some historical context for the battle. And what always happens is that the people at the grassroots level are relatively unaware of history, relatively unaware of an agenda. And the purpose of this report is to help correct that. So if we know what has been successful in stopping censorship, we can actually gear up and do that as needed. But what we're dealing with is these oligarchs, these people that are wanting to clamp down on the internet freedom. They really have the long term always in view, and they continue to push their agenda. They are not deterred by setbacks. They know that this is key, and we have to continue to oppose the censorship. And it gets down to trying to needing to understand what the laws are that they have on the agenda to try to get the ISP, your local internet service provider, to act as judge, jury, and executioner to stop the activity that they don't like, and we just can't put up with it. So this is something we have to say no to. We have to rise up, and that's been successful in the past, as this documentary short doc film makes it clear. So it's encouraging.
And they've made this argument about piracy, which, you know, if you're a nice person, well, I'm not going to pirate. People shouldn't pirate. I'm not going to steal. But it's much more broad than that. For one thing, what is considered stealing here, or piracy, is along the lines of, you get a new CD or DVD, and you make a copy of it, or you let your friend upload it to their iTunes. Where's the problem here? Is that really stealing?
Yeah, the problem is that all these laws that are so granular, they can be selectively enforced to set up their agenda, which is to silence the people they want to silence. And the poor, naive, trusting public just thinks, oh, they're just trying to get the bad guys, and I'm not a bad guy. But what we need to realize collectively as a people is that we need a voice for that is free, that is free speech, and we have to fight for this. And we can't be naive. All these things are selectively enforced. All the YouTube rules, so that they can just say they can say somebody claims copyright on this, and they can shut anything that is going viral for liberty down. So we have to recognize that these guys use tools, laws that appear to be good on the surface to accomplish their agenda, because we're just too naive to realize what we're doing. That has to end. We have to wake up and realize that we've got evil people trying to masquerade as good guys, and we have to see through it.
And what is copyright really about? Could you just clarify that? If I'm remembering correctly, copyright started a little after the invention of the Gutenberg press, and it was always intended to limit access to information?
Well, yeah, I don't think the cover story is that copyright laws are intended to benefit the producer, the people that are the creative force, so that their work is protected. But in actual fact, it does the opposite. So you have a lot of musicians that are for internet freedom because they recognize that it's actually good to get their stuff out there, and people buy the albums when they learn what they like, they learn what's good. So it's the censorship laws have always historically been used to limit the spread of what the public really likes, and it's always meant to keep us in a box, to keep us dumbed down, to keep creative activity from flourishing.
And there's such thing now as what's called a 360 deal, which means that when new recording artists these days sign a contract, they're basically signing away their lives. That they're agreeing to give a percentage of anything they produce. It might be, if they paint artwork, if they design T-shirts, anything they do. And it's really, in my mind, it's actually kind of a form of slavery. So, yeah, we need to maintain freedom. We need to insist on free access to things, and hopefully artists will just begin to produce their own things on a broader scale and find ways to promote. And as you said, this is a good way to promote when there's access to your things online.
Right, absolutely.
We have an article by John Rappoport, The Hoax at the Bottom of Autism and Alzheimer's. I might add ADHD because as I read this blog, most of what he wrote also applies to ADHD. No blood tests, no saliva tests, no urine tests, no genetic tests, no brain scans. Instead, what you see are lists and menus of behaviors. So there is no real diagnosis for any of these things.
Right. Again, this is all selective enforcement. These are vague laws that are intended to support a police state and to sell drugs, both of them. So that it's just chillingly like the Soviet gulags, where they could drug you up for supposed psychiatric illness, and that was common. We in the West in the 70s saw through that, and saw in the 80s, and saw that was their ruse, and here we are coming under the same thing. And we need to increase awareness of this tactic because it's awful, it's horrendous, it's not real medicine.
This he refers to the toxins in vaccines here. I like this paragraph. These are cases of vaccine damage. It's not autism caused by vaccine damage. It's not autism or various... Okay, I'm going to start that over. It's not autism caused by vaccine damage. It's not autism or CD3-SYT or VCT-I45 or any other arbitrary label. It's not a disease or a disorder. It's poisoning. Do you say a person who develops a severe and chronic problem after eating fish loaded with poison has a disease? Is it the fish-eating disease? So these are covers to some extent for poisoning, and Alzheimer's is also poisoning, and a lack of really the kind of brain tissue that your body creates out of cholesterol. So people who don't have enough cholesterol are probably going to develop Alzheimer's, which is a whole interesting relationship. ADHD in many cases is poisoning. If people whose children are diagnosed with ADHD change their diets many times, the ADHD goes away. So, and children with autism have recovered after they've gone through detox. So this is really just, it goes beyond misdiagnosis. It's intentional misdiagnosis.
Yeah, this has been a trend for a long time. I remember in the 70s when their ADHD first came out, there were kids that were hyperactive that were put on it, and it was found there were people that were sharing information about it that it had to do with the food dyes and all the additives in food. And that was sort of covered over and minimized, and the pharmaceutical industry kept on going down its track. What we didn't have then in the 70s was the internet. So we have a big advantage now, going back to our earlier story, that we fully have to capitalize on and get this information out there for people that are still thinking and still not too dumbed down by the television and the fluoride, etc. We need to just make our voices heard and get the word out that this is really not what the medical technicians who are not really doctors are claiming that it is. These are pharmaceutical companies pushing drugs that they know brain damage us, and we have to say no more.
So basically there's poison on both sides of the equation. There's poison on the damage side, and there's poison on, if I can use the term very, very loosely, the healing side. Of course, it doesn't really heal. It just masks symptoms, and it doesn't even really do that very well. So this is really, pharma is making money causing the problem, and pharma is making money masking the problem. So they're making money coming and going, and people are just continuing to suffer more and more. Here's a little good news. EPA slapped with lawsuit over ongoing bee deaths. And I had an article earlier this week that I was looking at that stated that Europe is no longer banning many of the pesticides that have been proven to cause colony collapse. So the bees are definitely under siege. So this is good news for the bees and for the future.
Right, not only in the United States, but in Europe. And of course, this is just a potential turning point. Slapped with lawsuit doesn't mean they won the lawsuit, doesn't mean that that anybody's even changing any policies. It just means that the battle's been engaged. So this is a potential turning point, and it's encouraging.
Yeah, we'll try to keep tabs on that, and hopefully they'll win. This is not something that we feel extremely strongly about, but we wanted to put it out there. Obama, now global head of Al-Qaeda. And when I say we don't feel terribly strongly about it, we do believe it and agree with it. And Alex Jones asked people to beat this drum this week. It's an easy idea to communicate, and it's backed up with facts, and it's important to let people know.
Right. The problem that we have is that the elites have purposely placed in a charismatic, maybe Afro-American, or at least he has that image. We don't know his full story, his full parentage, etc. So this guy is hard to oppose, and purposely so, because people are afraid of appearing racist, and that's the whole propaganda campaign. But there is good reason to believe that all of this Arab Spring and all that was brought about via the U.S. intelligence commandeering of Al-Qaeda. That's in the press in multiple places, multiple ways now. And of course, as commander-in-chief, guess who's over that? So the Al-Qaeda is bad, but it's also good, and we're supposed to agree and say, yes, whatever you say. Sorry, no, the current commander-in-chief is a deceiver, and people need to wake up, stop being deceived, and realize what's going on. It is not in the interests of stability and peace for radical Muslims to take over secular governments that may not be perfect, such as Egypt and Syria, certainly abuses, but we're going from bad to worse when Al-Qaeda gets in there. And this is all leading towards the clash of civilizations that the elites want to have to bring about this war between Christians and Muslims. And here is the supposed United States government facilitating that. So let's recognize that problem and get the guy out of there, or do whatever we need to do. And I don't mean in any way harm him physically. I mean do whatever political maneuver needs to be done to contain the problem.
And it's helpful if you have a moment to contact your Congress, your senators. We happen to live in California, so it doesn't do us a whole lot of good. But Alex was asking for people to get in contact with their representatives and talk to them about this and say, demand change. And this is another reason to get in touch with your Congress people and just reinforce this movement. 15 members of Congress demand investigation of Obama's ammo hoard. This is about the 2 billion rounds of ammunition. And Alex was also asking people to contact their representatives and ask them to join this group of people who are asking questions about the 2 billion rounds of ammo.
And we're not just mentioning this because Alex said to do this. There's a reason behind this. And this is an info war, and Alex is leader, and he does have a very good sense about what could turn the tide, what could break into the mainstream, and this is a key item for that. That because the establishment is in total denial mode about the 1.5.
No, 2 billion.
2 billion now. We're up to 2 billion rounds of ammo. And most of it's hollow point and not used for target practice, etc., etc. So, none of their excuses like stockpiling is cheaper, etc., make any sense. So we know that they're in denial mode, and that is when this can make the biggest impact. If the truth really gets out there, people will start waking up. Wait a minute, what's our government doing? We thought it was our government, maybe it isn't. That kind of thing. So we're mentioning this because the potential to break into the mainstream is very, very big, and as potential really important benefits for getting the truth out.
And the fact that it even is the DHS, I mean, even just to mention the Department of Homeland Security is basically a militarized force active on our soil against the American people. And really, this is the whole idea of having a Department of Homeland Security is contrary to the Constitution, because there is not supposed to be a militarized force in the country that opposes people who live here.
Absolutely. The whole idea of posse comitatus, the separation of the police and the military, it was because of those principles that America was different from the rest of the world. And people have been dumbed down so that they don't realize that now. They think being patriotic is supporting the troops, and it's okay to have the troops in uniform on your streets. No, it is anti-American because we stand for liberty, and police and military have two very different functions. So this is important for people to realize. This DHS concept, this Homeland Security concept, is not about security. It's about a police state, advancing a police state. I mean, just the whole idea of homeland sounds so German to me anyway. It should be a dead giveaway.
the Vaterland. The Fatherland.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, on that note, we do thank you for joining us this week and hope that you have a great week coming up.
And remember to see the world the way that it really is. See yourself in it. Walk your walk. You are the one you've been waiting for.